Hello there, my wonderful Crab Tribe followers. Welcome back. And this time we're going to look at another EDH combo card, the Enchanted Evening. And this is a top 8 video, top 8 combos and synergies you can use with the Enchanted Evening. So hopefully by the end you found it fun and useful, and you start to apply some of these combos yourself. But if you disagree with the rankings, or you had some other ideas, or I missed something, let me know below by the end. But jumping right into it, the Enchanted Evening. Right here is a 5-cost enchantment that says all permanents, they are enchantments in addition to their other types. So the first thing I kind of thought of with this card is all of these Enchantress cards. Just because they're kind of generally in enchant tribal decks, and they're pretty good just to draw you cards. However, the Enchanted Evening only affects permanents, so when you cast an enchantment, and that's a trigger for a cast trigger, it will have no effect on that, because it's not on the battlefield yet, and if it's not on the battlefield, it's actually not a permanent. So these are still good to have in most decks that would probably have Enchanted Evening, but you won't get like an extra draw because it's affecting something in the stack zone, not on the battlefield. It does affect 2 other Enchantress cards, the Yavimaya Enchantress and the Ephemereth Enchantress. So the first one there gets +1/+1 for each enchantment on the battlefield, and the Enchanted Evening makes everything an enchantment. So in a 4-player game, that will be 1 big green lady. So if that's what you're into, that's one way you can do that. And then the Ephemereth Enchantress, whenever an enchantment is put into the graveyard from play, draw a card. So if Enchanted Evening is in play, everything's an enchantment. Then you can board wipe and draw a lot of cards, or have some kind of sack engine and get a lot of value that way. So that's just very quickly what it affects and what it doesn't affect. And then we'll just jump right into the first combo. And this makes the bottom of the list because it's kind of salty, and a lot of people don't like it. And it actually involves the most pieces and the most mana. So it is Enchanted Evening and Opalescense. So Opalescence says each enchantment is a creature with power toughness equal to its converted mana cost, and it's still an enchantment. So for example, their Enchanted Evening is a 5-cost enchantment, so it is now also a 5/5 creature. So if you just had Opalescence by itself, that's kind of cool. You have some more blockers, so that's somewhat useful. But if you have both Opalescence and Enchanted Evening, well, now all lands and tokens are immediately destroyed because those have a 0 CMC or mana value. You didn't spend any mana to cast them, so they just are immediately destroyed as a state-based action of having 0 toughness. And that means you actually can't respond in between them dying and try to like float mana or sack a treasure or something, because the game doesn't work that way. It checks for state-based actions between each trigger. So that's right there pretty bad because you're wiping the board of lands. You're doing an Armageddon, but worse because now no one can keep any lands afterwards. And so this could really backfire if you don't have a way to keep your lands. So you kind of need an Anthem, Glorious Anthem or Gia's Anthem. If you had the Elish Norn out, that would be pretty useful. You could also save your lands if they were first land creatures, and then you put counters on those land creatures. You can see it's kind of convoluted, and there's a lot of steps you have to do to help yourself out. Otherwise, it could be pretty useful if you had a lot of big creatures and no one else had big creatures. And then it's like casting a perpetual Armageddon, and then you just smack them with, your big creatures you already have. But if you wanted to add more spice to this, you could add a Parallax Wave. Because a Parallax Wave has 5 fading counters, and you can remove a fading counter to exile a target creature. And in this case, it's going to be a creature itself. So what you can do actually is exile 4 creatures and then hold priority after each one. And then with the last counter, you remove Parallax Wave itself. And then you can let the other ones resolve. and then all those exiles don't go under Parallax Wave because it's not actually on the battlefield, and then you let it come on the battlefield. So it's kind of a weird scenario where it exiles itself and brings itself back. But then the cards that were previously exiled don't come back because the OG Parallax Wave wasn't there. That's just kind of an added piece you could use to get rid of anything left over after all this. Yeah, so I made some of these memes here to just demonstrate the problem here, and why it's at the bottom, because you can destroy all lands and all tokens forever, but you might not have any friends afterwards. And keep in mind, actually, anything that says destroy all enchantments would affect everything on the battlefields when you have Enchanted Evening out, such as our combo number 7 with the Calming Verse. Calming Verse destroys all enchantments you don't control. You do have to tap out because it says if you control an untapped land, then you destroy all enchantments you control. So just remember to tap out before you let it finish resolving. And then you destroy everything you do not control, because Enchanted Evening makes everything an enchantment. And that is a one-sided everything wipe. So that one is just as bad as far as, making friends and keeping friends as the last one. But this one's easier to do because it's only one card and it's only 4 mana. Outside of this combo, by the way, this is a terrible card. It's in 0% of decks. Because it's a sorcery speed and it's a 4 cost. You can do the same thing, for 2 or 3 costs at instant speed. But in this situation, it's great because we destroy everything for everyone else. And then next, combo number 6, Sphere of Safety. Sphere of Safety is one giant bubble, and it is a super giant bubble with the Enchanted Evening, because they have to pay X, where X is the number of enchantments to attack us. So yeah, it's just one giant protection shield. It doesn't really win you the game, it just kind of slows down the game and gives you time to do some other combos. So that's kind of an auto include, I think, if you're gonna build a deck around enchantments and have Enchanted Evening. And then combo number 5, the Aura Shards, which is great because it says when a creature enters the battlefield, you may destroy a target artifact or enchantment. And guess what? Everything on the battlefield is an enchantment with the Enchanted Evening. So, you can just get some token generators going. Have a lot of elves, a lot of soldiers, humans, wolves, spiders, even. A lot of possibilities in Bant and Selesnya. And the more you pump out, the more permanents you can destroy. And this is actually a May ability, so you don't have to destroy someone's lands. Although you could choose to be, that friend. So it's a little higher up because this is a 3-cost enchantment. It's only 1 card. That makes it pretty strong. Next, we do have the Sanctum Weaver and any kind of untapper, such as the Umbra Mantle. That's what I'm using here. And then there's Free from the Real and Penum's Aura as well. Basically, it taps to add mana of 1 color, where X is the number of enchantments you control. And then Enchanted Evening makes everything an enchantment, so you probably have more than 3 mana you'll produce, so you can untap it and do it again forever. That's infinite mana. It's also infinite power because it gives +2/+2 till end of turn. So you could do this in response to blocking. You could make a big creature, make it unblockable somehow, and that is really strong. Infinite mana for 2 + 3 + the 5. That's not so bad. I think it's a strong card. And next we have combo number 3, which happens to also be a Weaver, the Weaver of Harmony. And this is just one combo you can do even without Enchanted Evening. You can copy a target enchantment, activated, triggered, or triggered ability of any enchantment source you control. So what you could do with that is you could copy a mana producing source like Carpet of Flowers here. And in a 4-player game, that'll probably give you more than 4 mana. So that would be enough to, untap it and then activate the ability again. You can do that infinitely for infinite mana. But the interesting thing here is if you have Enchanted Evening out, well, then everything is an enchantment. You can copy the ability of everything on the battlefield, anything. So you could actually copy enchantment, obviously enchantments. You could copy planeswalker abilities, because those planeswalkers would then be enchantments. So all of their upticks and downticks, those are activated abilities. You could copy, land abilities as long as they're not mana abilities. So all those non-basics that do fun things you can copy. Here's some more examples. You can copy Blade of Cells. Myriad is an attack trigger. Teferi's Puzzle Box is just an upkeep trigger, or draw step trigger. And then you could copy any of the steal abilities. So you could steal 2 things. The possibilities are like almost endless for things you could copy. And what's kind of cool is that the Weaver of Harmony, when you have Enchanted Evening, he basically becomes a Lithoform Engine, the first ability of it, for 1 less mana, because it's 1 green rather than 2 colorless. So all the combos you can do with Lithoform Engine, you could now do with the Weaver of Harmony. So that's a lot of combo potential, and I like it. And I think you should use it in an enchantment deck. And that is number 2. Number 3. Number 2, however, is, get close to the end, the Archon of Sun's Grace, / Ajani's Chosen, plus the Enchanted Evening. And that's actually going to create infinite tokens. But that'll actually draw the game right there, because it continues forever. There's no way to end the loop. Unless you had some kind of sack outlet, you could instantly kill either of those creatures that you used. You could do that. And then you have to wait a turn to attack, I guess. You could, I guess, have Alter Dementia and just sack all the Pegasus or the cats. If you want to use, I guess, the enchantments, though, you could have this Sage of Mysteries here, because that'll have a Constellation Mill. And you could also use the Grim Guardian, which is a black card. So you would have that in if you had the Newser. And the black Grim Guardian there pings everyone for 1 whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield. So all those Pegasus entering the battlefields become enchantments with Enchanted Evening. So that's one way you can win right away, or at least draw the game if you have no other option. And then for the number 1 spot, the number 1 combo I believe is the best, and you should always try to do with the Enchanted Evening, is the Aura Thief. The Aura Thief is the best because he says when he is put into the graveyard from play, you gain control of all enchantments. And remember, the Enchanted Evening makes all permanents enchantments, including your opponents, so you just gain control of everything. All of their creatures, all of their lands, all of their artifacts, their planeswalkers, and people are very sad, and they usually concede right away. So I would try to kill it right away, though. Don't leave on the battlefield more than a turn, because someone can try to exile it. I just do a Sword of Plowshares, and then you're the one that's sad. So make sure you have the right board set up for this. Yeah, so what's kind of weird, though, is the rules text for Aura Thief actually tries to dissuade you from doing this. It says there's not much interesting that happens when an enchantment changes ownership. I guess that's true in the case of some things, but in this case, actually a lot of interesting things happen. So yeah, those are the top 8 things I think you can do with the Enchanted Evening. I probably missed something, and I'd love to hear from you and what you can do. So if you enjoyed this, feel free to give it a like and a share. But I will see you in the next one, and have a great rest of the week.